Nee, omdat je collega's zeiden dat ze gaan cureren.
Q&A. Yeah.
Both of you.
Yeah.
Sen or Hunter?
We'll be switching around, but
okay.
yeah.
Sen and
if
Hunter.
needed, yeah.
Perfect.
Want to let you know.
Yeah, I always like to, when it's the first rows, I like to be a little bit active too.
Like you want to run over?
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, but the first ones and then
Just like lock eyes with us if you want to not, if you don't want to run.
yeah, I know. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, you can do better. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Ah, lovely. Welcome to this second day of iterations at Design Museum Den Bosch. To our online audience also tuning in, also a big welcome. So, first of all, who's here for the second day? Oh, nice. Okay, I'm going to ask you about your highlights later on, but then you already know that this symposium explores how technological developments empower makers and how the creative coding landscape will or can evolve in the future. So first, a little announcement that this event wouldn't be possible with the support of Stimuleringsfonds Creatieve Industrie, Picture Right Fonds, Design Museum here in Den Bosch, and Boutin Laboratories. So a big thanks to them for making this possible. So my name is Dymphie Braun. I'm a program maker. I organize talks, workshops, events about design, and mostly about the intersection of design and social justice. And I host a lot of events too, mostly about visual storytelling and digital culture. So I'm really happy to be here today. What are we going to explore today? Key themes like sustainable computing, world building, and creative education. And we've invited a few people to give a presentation, but maybe you've also already checked out some of the workshops, or the lectures, or the performances, or the installations. I'm curious to know, because I saw that some of you were here already for the second day. Can I ask one of you, who was it? Second day, people? Okay, your hand went up like really fast. I want to ask you, what was your highlight until now? What is your name and what is your highlight?
I would say the discussion around friction, but also like as an anti-capitalist process, tool.
Was that the one by Luna yesterday?
That caused the inspiration, yes, of that discussion. Like there were discussions in the hallway, which then happened, but the cause of the discussions was to talk about friction, but then bringing it as an anti-capitalist practice was really interesting to me.
Oh, it's also nice to hear that it didn't stop just on this stage, but also afterwards. Anyone else who likes to share a highlight? And maybe online audience also saw already something? Anyone else who has a highlight? Is that a hand up? No? Just food? Come on, don't be shy. I wasn't here yesterday, so I'd love to know. No one? Not even the organization? Hi, what was your highlight?
Well, I was also more wondering how the workshop was this morning. I was kind of busy doing a lot of things, but someone can maybe enlighten us about the workshops. We had two this morning. Yeah, that's it. Touch Designer by Matanya and Flo de Fuego had the Hydra. And I was wondering, yeah.
Yeah, he had to work. So anyone who wants to share something? Hi, what is your name and what workshop did you attend?
I'm Joost. I did the touch design workshop. Really information overload. It's already a lot, but it's really still processing, still landing. But really fun, and I also liked Matena's talk yesterday. Yeah, really about finding, and yeah, she loved the word iterating, and it's perfect for the event as well. Just really shapes a lot of possibilities using touch designer. So yeah, really loved it.
Great, so you felt inspired. Okay, well, we're hoping to inspire you now as well. For our speakers, it's also nice to know who we have in the room, because who here identifies as a creative coder? I think many of you. Okay, I don't see all hands up. So what are the other ones doing? Maybe any designers or artists that exploring the digital field? Okay, also many of you. And is there anyone here who works in education? Okay, and who of you is still a student? Okay, also 10 people something. And who just randomly ended up here? Or is just like curious and wants to be inspired? Okay. Well, we're going to inspire you, I promise. So what we're going to do today is we have 3 presentations lined up for you. And after each presentation, there is room for some questions from the audience, but also from people online. And for the people online, if you have a question, please already insert your question in the chat during the presentation, because then we can process them and ask them at the end. Let me see. Also, beforehand, a little shout out to Vera van Sijp and Fabian van Sluis, because they curated this whole program, and we will meet them later. I think we're just like ready to kick off with this first speaker. Are you ready? Okay. Because our first speaker is an independent artist, an image maker, and an educator from New York City. And he uses generative software to explore the history of the internet, video games, and the materiality of images. His work bridges the digital and physical worlds in innovative ways. Please welcome to the stage, John Provencher.
These are, hello? It works, all right. You know Magnolia, the Tom Cruise, you know? Anyways. All right. So, I have no sermon today, but I do have some confessions that I would love to make. Making a lecture is really weird. You're sort of going through old work trying to make sense of it, and it's not how it really works. So I like to just start lectures by confessing all of my sins and my influence and my ideas. I feel like that's the most useful, and then I'll just sort of speed run through my work. Yeah. So for those who don't know me that well, they might look at my work and be like, what the hell does this guy do? I used to be a graphic designer. I studied graphic design at California College of the Arts from 2010 to 2015. And graphic design is not really fun to work, well, in America, it's not a fun job. Here it might be more fun. But I've always loved graphic design. I'm sort of speaking to the choir here, but graphic design is such a minimal but like effective way to reduce symbols and graphics, and I've always just been really attracted to how graphic designers of the past have sort of symbolized images. And some graphic designers have this like real good tendency to transform images into this like idiosyncratic kind of new way using technology that's before the computer, like printing or something like this. This is Otto Eicher's poster for the 1972 Olympics. So in America, graphic design is not so great, so I quit graphic design like around 2017. I left my job and I was sort of searching for a new format to work in. I had started programming quite a bit and sort of found this rich history in the web. The web felt like a place for artists, not designers. It felt like a place where you could publish your ideas. It was not only just a place to post or to advertise, but a place to publish. Images became buttons, things became hyperlinks. It felt very poetic. Artists sort of like through digital connections could share their work with an audience that was variable to change. Slow dial-up connections made images blurry. Images were small. But a sort of new format was sort of arising in the web, and that was very exciting for me. This is Olia Leolina. My boyfriend came back from war in 1996. And then I was sort of like lost a little bit. I was like, yeah, I'm not a web designer or a graphic designer, actually. What the fuck am I? So I began to like kind of look at the digital artist. Like, what is the digital artist? To me, it was really artists who were prone to making their own programs, sort of reinventing how images were made, how animations were made, using algorithms and technology and video to sort of display their work. And the most interesting thing to me is when artists use like technology not as like a trope in their work, but to really fine-tune their own materials. They love images, they love the digital. This is Lillian Schwartz, Olympia, 1971, yeah. And whenever I had a chance to, I would try to inject chance into my work. That's like a really big part of why programming is so beautiful. Chance kind of opens up this space for things you wouldn't expect to happen. And when you build your own programs, you can inject chance any way you'd like. There's sort of a paradox. You get this like complete control over an output, an image, but you also have like no control at all. This is Harold Cohen's. This is a program he made called Aaron. And I love this program. It's a painting program. It was sort of introduced as like an AI. Before that was a buzzword. But it created these very strange but beautiful paintings. And the one thing I would note about Harold is that he was way ahead of his time when he was thinking about digital art. His art was digital because it was a program, not because it was on the screen. He would create machines that he called Aaron, and Aaron was the artist's assistant or the partner in his work. So I've been thinking a lot about images. Like what gives, what's the material of digital art? It kind of gives me anxiety. Like, where is all of this going, you know? It's hard for me to go into a museum or a gallery and see a beautiful painting and be like, yeah, I do something similar to this. No, it's hard. I think images have a different sort of aura, a different material, and I'm very interested in this. Walter Benjamin once said, any sort of reproduction of an original is losing all of its aura. I kind of don't agree. I think there is something interesting about reproducing images. We have this like digital culture now that moves so fast. There is no art history book that will talk about a deep-fried image, but I think it is equally as interesting. What is the material of pixels? What do these things do when we edit them too much? How does a 15-year-old share that they're burnt out? I think these are like very important things of the internet because it's for everyone. So all of these micro aesthetics start to sort of compile. This is Courier Archangel's cookery. He released it this year, actually, and I would highly recommend trying it out. It's free to use. I started working for myself like around 2018, and I had a tough time, actually. I was trying to figure out a career as like a digital nomad. I didn't really want to be a designer. I didn't want to be a creative director. I just wanted to make a living doing work that I thought was fun to do. So what I did, since I was a graphic designer and like I could only get really graphic design jobs, whenever anyone asked me to do work, I would just use code. If somebody wanted an animation, I would make them like a website. This was my friend worked at Alexander Wang at the time, and they asked for an animation, and I gave them this website and ended up putting it on the homepage. I loved this because it was cool to see users interact with this crazy thing and sort of make their own glitches and things like this. Yeah, same thing. A friend of mine on Instagram was like, hey, you should come to Nike and just do your thing, whatever this means. Just come do your code stuff and we'll try to make something. And in this case, I didn't make a website, but I made a program that just outputted SVGs of this moon phase. It was for their running program. And I was thinking to myself, this is such a cool job. You just sort of output things, like you make programs that aren't websites, but they're, constantly outputting these things. So instead of an animation or a PDF or something, I just gave them 1,000 SVGs, which felt great, actually. I'm like, you guys can deal with it now. So in around 2020, I sort of like stopped doing super commercial website stuff, and I just wanted to become a good programmer. Becoming a good programmer to me is really abstract. Like, you can learn how to make a website, you can learn how to adapt the library, copy and paste from Stack Overflow, all this stuff. But I really wanted to understand something that felt personal. Since a lot of my work had to do with like small bits making up a whole, I got really interested in pixels, just from like a purely aesthetic point of view. And I think it has a lot to do with these things I've been talking about, just sort of how precise pixels are in displaying an image. It almost feels like a graphic form. If you zoom in really close, you can see these patterns. I love the history of video games because it's sort of the history of computational graphics. The PlayStation 2 was really famous for using persistent dithering so that developers could use less colors, making it easier for them to develop sort of higher resolution things. You get these sort of artifacts from the past that don't really exist anymore because we have endless options. And it's personal, it's nostalgic, and nostalgia is bad. I get that, I'm a kid from the 90s. I'm just sort of perpetuating childhood or something like this. But I do feel like there's something to herald from the past. It's less of nostalgia. It's more of like, there is something really cool here. Figuring out how images are made. And these images sort of haunt me because they're still seared into my brain, but they're so minimal in how they're executed. And to me, that has a good aura. Things could be nostalgic, and maybe that's bad, but maybe we should follow the aura. And it's really nice to hear all these talks from yesterday. It feels like everyone's on the same page, which is like a really nice thing to hear. When we have everything available as creative technologists, it's almost like we want to go back a little bit. So I learned how to code. It took me actually a long time. I had known how to code, but not like that deeply. I learned about matrices and how to manipulate in real time and performance, and these things took the longest. It took me around a year. I started with using image rasterizing, dithering, and how pixels make an image, and I got really intent about making programs that do that. I made generative art projects sort of around this to help me. It was like my grad school. I sort of like created these generative projects online, which at the time was very popular, and I had the affordance to do so. One project I did was called Maps. It was a very simple project that was trying to depict these biomes and just with color and form. And I mean, this is nerdy, but like just the cool thing about dithering is that you can evaluate each pixel. Like you can control exactly what you would like and then make the rest random. So instead of just doing pixel by pixel, you could use dithering as more of like a grid format to make designs. And generative art is very cool because you set up this very complex system to get these kind of crazy random results, and I love that process actually. And kind of working with pixels in this algorithmic way, you get these like very impressionistic, almost like handmade things, which is very nice. So that's the script for it. If anyone's curious, you can write it down. It's pretty simple. It's actually really simple, but the cool thing for me was as a past graphic designer and a web developer, it kind of all converged into these scripts. Like I'm using the web to make SVGs, and these SVGs I can edit like a designer and print and stuff like this. Doing this kind of work led me to get in contact with people who saw my work and thought I was an illustrator. I think it was like a mistake. They were like, oh, you're an illustrator, that's cool. And I sort of took the same approach to these illustrations as my previous work. I just sort of didn't tell them anything, and I just made it with code. So I would sort of like take similar programs, and for each illustration, just make edits. So if there was an illustration about data borders, I would just sort of replace pixels with an interface. Or if it's about microchips, I would try to make a, microchippy thing or something. I don't know. And this was a really fun process because working with images, to make images was quite fun. Most of the work I was doing was more abstract and with other people's content, but being like more pictorial and being able to use different objects to make images became like the concept for most of these editorial things. There's a pretty cute like mouse here. Yeah, here we go. And yeah, so most of it is just me trying to play with my programs like a child, and it's a lot of fun actually. It feels like it's my own world that I can sort of control and release control at the same time. And the editorial stuff, it wouldn't be that fun if I had to actually, illustrate it. But many of the illustration jobs that I get, ironically enough, are about like this friction, or I don't know. Most of the writers are writing about technology, and they're talking critically about what's happening. So there's like this nice tension. They're talking about there's this new technology, it's great, but there's these things that are happening. For example, with this one's about AI hallucinating and sort of learning off other AI, so it becomes this sort of like decoded system. So, for the animation, you can do the same thing. You can feed an animation to AI a million times, and it just sort of goes insane. I put too many slides in. I'm not going to talk about everything. I'm just going to go through. Yeah. On the side of that, I'm also doing I've had some opportunities to show some work. Is anyone from Germany? Have you ever been to Bundkunsthal? How do you pronounce it? It's, okay, I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's a museum in Germany. But yeah, being able to show work that maybe started on the web and sort of can find a space is really cool. Bundkunsthal? Yeah. Yeah. Bundkunsthal. Yeah, they were very nice, and they had a great exhibition. It was called Interaction, and they had some great artists. And yeah, it's really interesting in the art world. The art world is having to compensate for what's happening in the real world. So there's AI, there's NFT, there's all these like digital things that are emerging. So one other issue about the immaterialness of digital things is it's really hard to show in a museum. That's other things I've been thinking about. Because at its best, digital art is best shown on like a phone or a screen. That's sort of like where it belongs. But there's other sort of like skeuomorphic things you can do. This is a project called Circles where I just showed how hard it is to draw a circle programmatically. This showed in London in 2022. And then also, I've been doing generative art and NFTs and things like this, and they are kind of cringe. It's a hard world to navigate. So whenever I do something like this, I try to think about the format. So for this exhibition, it was sort of about creating these like generative transactions. And what was cool is I was able to program a digital version that worked in JavaScript, but also one that could work in a space. I also had another piece in that show talking about time, very inspired by this early net art piece called Form, and how our interfaces change over time and in devices. So creating these like real-time animations that would eventually change over time. And I was also kind of just really interested in using more imagery in my work. I love sort of the moment happening now. It feels like a renaissance, so I wanted to make these sort of renaissance screenshots. I had recently purchased a Mac G3, and the owner didn't delete any of the files. So I had all his screenshots, and I was like, I really want to make a project about memory, like fake memories, because I was going through his screenshots on the Mac, and they felt like my own memories. So I started putting some of my work through there. And what's great about these old machines is that they'll dither images further, so there's like this nice material to this screenshot. Angels in the Wi-Fi. I've also, this year, tried to make an SVG Doom renderer, which has been kind of hard, actually. But trying to, remake Doom in a way, that I could sort of edit and work with. This is still a work in progress. I'm doing other projects with this renderer. But I was asked to do an installation at the Museum of Moving Image in New York. And I told the curator I would love to make a speedrun generator where this Doom character is speedrunning through an exhibit in the exhibit. And she was down for that, so we did that. But yeah, mostly when I do these generative projects, I try to think of concepts to kind of push my work further, and they end up coinciding with other commissions I'm doing. This was a project for On Running, and I'm an Otto Eicher fan, so I was like, I will do this. This sounds fun. So I made these illustrations and the graphics for this event in New York. I had been really into pen plotters. Since my scripts can be dissected with SVG, I thought it'd be really nice to sort of pen plot them see what sort of forms I can make. And this sort of stuff, if you just post something, sometimes you just get a DM. This is probably like my favorite project of the year. Any skateboarders? Is that illegal here? My idol skateboarder messaged me on Instagram, and it was a very nice moment. So I got to do his board, which was great. But yeah, mostly working in these sort of different modes. And I've called this period of my life very self-indulgent just because I've been able to sort of make these images, and it's been pretty fun. And that's where I'll leave it. This is me in my studio. No, there's an artist, Travis Smalley. I co-taught a workshop with him. This was on his arena, and I was like, can I use this image? The only sermon-like thing I would say is to try to have fun with your computer. Like, don't be so serious. Everyone's so serious, I don't know. It's creative coders are so talented, and like no company or institution is going to understand how talented you are. So you kind of have to, set your own, make your own way, So just have fun and enjoy your computer, I guess. Yeah. Thank you.
That was a really good advice at the end. I'm sure I have some questions, but I'm also sure you have some questions. Is there any? Oh, already fingers up. And also, I want to remind the online people, I haven't seen any question yet, but if you have one, put it in the chat. Let me see. Hi, what is your name and what is your question?
Hi, my name is Michael. First of all, I disagree with you. These are not too many images. This is the perfect amount. So great to see them on a big screen and not on a tiny smartphone, so thank you for that. I was wondering, a lot of your work uses dithering as a technology, right? And dithering is something you use to deal with limited amount of colors.
Sure.
And I think you have, I was wondering if you could talk a bit about your color choice or choice of colors in relation to this technique of dithering.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
Kind of. So I have an array of colors that I made 2 years ago that I keep going back to. And what happens is when I'm about to do a project, it's like 26 colors. So I'll stand on my computer and just refresh and shuffle the colors until it looks good. That's literally what I do. It's so fun, actually. The colors come from 2 different sources in most of them. It'll either be from Castlevania, the old Castlevania. I stole this palette. And the old Commodore machine. I made this kind of huge index of colors. And usually I just try to find a good balance, shuffling through these arrays. But yeah, what usually works best is like kind of like muddy colors mixed with, I don't know, yeah, just different muted colors look kind of nice together, yeah.
Thanks, Michael. I think there was also a question on that side. So Sen is going to give you a mic.
Hey, so I'm Quentin. I was just wondering about like your source images. Like, what kind of image do you use to start with? Like, is it images that you steal on the web, that you take yourself, is it a mix of all of these? Is it like images that you first create on Photoshop or whatever, and then that you work with in coding? Like, how do you deal with source images?
Yeah, I would say the primary source is like photoshopping images I find online and or AI. I don't know how you guys feel about AI, but okay, let me talk about it. AI on its own looks really bad. I hate the way it looks. But running it through these is quite nice, actually. But yeah, there needs to be intent, of course, with this. But I've been trying to find a way to work with AI, which is very tough, because I don't really like a lot of the outputs. But as collage pieces for the Photoshop, it's pretty nice. But they're usually very small grayscale images that I'm just kind of playing with on the scripts. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam, can you give that mic to? Hi, what is your name? What is your question?
Hi, my name's Ben. Thanks for the presentation, first of all. A lot of your work has this kind of contrast between handmade and automated, lots of craft versus kind of machine-made things, quite literally like handmade and then machine-made, which I really like. And also in your output, like thinking about your NFTs and also, but then your pen plotters. So then I'm curious to hear more about your thoughts on like what the potentials are of sticking with these contrasts and the kind of messiness in between them, or whether that's a struggle. I would like to hear more about that, please.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think the pen plotter really, like, I got very obsessed with it, you know? It was like a few months where I was just making a lot. And I'd never really printed it out for a while, ever since university. So it's just nice to see a machine working in a certain way, like the pen plotter supports it. Like pens will run out of ink and figure out what pen is best, and it does feel like a program that you're working with in a physical space. And the translation I really liked. You know, it does have this like, oh, it looks programmed in digital, but also not. So I'm still figuring it out, because I also like showing work in a physical space, but I really detest looking at screens. So it's a nice way to translate that thing. Yeah.
I also have an interesting question from the audience online. This one is from Stick. And he's asking, artifacts are replaced by algorithms. Designers become curators instead of creators. Isn't your curiosity for code indicative of the path graphic designers of the future should take? Yeah. Especially you're coming from graphic design.
That's nice. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I think, okay, I will say, the one thing I will say is, I think that coders need to be very intentional about their practice. You know, they should be very proud of like what they've learned and put it into practice, because nobody else really knows how to do it, right? Like institutions will maybe give you a grant or hire you, but they don't know how it's supposed to be. So yeah, young like creative tech people need to just go in as an artist and have intention of their work, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. And what does that say about the role that craftsmanship will play in the future of digital art?
I think there are people that have digital craft, you know, coders, back-end coders. You can see them on the computer and you just know that they're good, you know. So I think that kind of craft is overlooked often. So, you know, you think about handcrafts, there's like digital craft. So maybe that, yeah.
Well, luckily there's this space where we give it a stage. Another online question. Max is saying, first of all, he loves your work. Do you still use any conventional design software?
Yeah, I use Photoshop, Illustrator all the time. Unfortunately, yeah. Looking for alternatives constantly, but yeah.
You wanted to say something about that? Wait, I'm giving you a mic, because then we can all hear you.
John,
Yes.
I would love to know about your education. So what exactly do you teach your students? What is the most important thing that they learn in your courses?
Great question. It depends on who you ask, but I would say I had this course in New York called the Generative Web. This was before like generative was like a term that people used a lot. So they came in very confused what that meant, and we were making websites as like art objects and making randomness happen. And I like that time more than now. Now everyone thinks generative is Perlin noise or something like this. But I do think there's there's one lesson you'll learn in my class is that I almost teach zero code. I'll sort of give them resources and tutorials that fits their practice. You know, I'm looking at like what they make before, whether it's handmade or graphic design, like what they're interested in. So if I can like win them over, if they make a cool project, then they'll code more, you know? So I try to like not teach too many like coded things and just sort of like, here's how your work could be in this world, you know? But I don't teach anymore, so that's an important
Just
thing.
lectures and sometimes a workshop here and there. Yeah, hi. What is your name and what is your question?
Hi, my name is Kwan. Thanks for the presentation, really beautiful visuals. I wanted to ask, because in your work there's this aspect of nostalgia and this aspect of like the materiality of sort of visual cultures coming back. I'm just curious, like from your perspective, since you're building these systems, generative systems yourself, how would you say like, how does that look like for you on the side of materiality of code? Like with, I don't know, like if you open your program 5 years from now, will it run properly?
Well, I did have anxiety about this before I started coding a lot. That's like kind of the main reason I wanted to like, quote unquote, learn how to code without any libraries or dependencies. Because I'm like, oh, what if I use Paper.js a lot, which I love Paper.js. I love Jörg. But I was like, what if he dies and this goes away and the web standards change, you know? So I began to like make my own little libraries, which in theory, as long as JavaScript is still around, it'll be fine. Hopefully, yeah. So it'll run in 5 years, maybe not 50, I don't know, 50 years. As long as the browser is still around, yeah.
Anyone else who wants to respond to that or maybe has a new question? Hey, what is your name? What's your question?
Hello, my name is Hai. I love the fact that you talked about nostalgia and how it isn't really nostalgia. I also noticed that, you know, I mean, for like people of our generation, it might be nostalgia because it reminds you of, you know, maybe the Commodore 64, or like you said, Castlevania or old NES games. But I always quite fascinated by the fact that really young people also are really, you know, enamored by this whole kind of style or genre, however you want to call it. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about why maybe it isn't nostalgia then.
I was trying to explain this to Luna yesterday. We were talking, and I was telling them my students are like very, like 20-year-old people today are very anti like advancement of technology. They might have private Instagrams, and they might share things in obscure ways and have obscure interests. And I think it's really just like we've hit a saturation point maybe where everything's too like branded towards this like hyper future that people are like looking back just for things. I think it's like a cultural moment, you know, with people that I think is cool. Like I think people should learn about specific hardware, like hardware that does one thing that's really cool, you know? Yeah, I think it's a cultural moment people are like just interested in.
Okay, last online question. Wouter is asking, for someone who works so much with SVG, you're strangely a big fan of pixels. What is your vision on vectors versus pixels?
That's cool. I don't know. I like that you can take an image into bits with pixels, like it doesn't always have to be pixels or something. But I like SVG. I think SVGs are like really beautiful. Like if you have a pixel perfect 200 pixel by 200 pixel image, you can scale it up the same way an SVG is. So I think I love images that can do that, like the affordance to scale without size. SVGs get pretty big. So what's nice about these is that I can save them just as images and stuff. Yeah. I don't know how to answer that question. Sorry.
I hope Wouter's
It's
happy
a good
with
question,
the
though.
answer. At least
Good
we
question.
answered. Okay, last question from the audience, and then we're gonna wrap this part up. Hey, what is your name and question?
Hi, I'm Flor. Thank you for your presentation. Your work is amazing. I'm curious because someone asked you about the softwares for designing, but what kind of softwares or languages you use that are like not this Photoshop or
Good one.
Oh, I've gotten really good advice. I forget their names, but there are these alternatives. There's Inkscape for like an Illustrator. The problem is I know the keybinds to Photoshop and Illustrator, so I'm very fast. So when I go to a new program, it's very hard to relearn them. But it would be a goal of mine to just replace all the programs I use with my own, which would be great. But there are some really good online resources that show alternatives. The problem is, people know Photoshop so well and stuff. But it gets worse every year, so maybe people will move away and things will get better. Yeah. Check out Inkscape is very cool, though.
Oh, wait. Because then all the others can hear.
Oh, what language do I use? I just use JavaScript. I made a little library of my own that just works in SVG vector. And it's pretty much like JavaScript on a website. You're just injecting code into the body, but instead of HTML, it's like just a fat SVG that then gets like exported. I like vanilla JavaScript quite a bit. People hate it, but it's a fun language for me, and it translates well to Python, which I also use sometimes for like hardware stuff. Yeah.
Okay, last question.
Yes.
As a former educator then, but as someone still inspiring new talent, what do you think is the most valuable skill to teach to aspiring artists, especially in the realm of generative art?
Just to have like a practice in mind. I think I wish I learned that earlier. Like technology is not cool for technology's sake. We are not. Learning how to code is very easy, actually. It just takes time. But I think just having like a point of view is very important. That takes years to do. So you don't need to code to do this, right? You can be a good contemporary artist just by having a very strong, unique point of view. And I think digital artists could learn from artists in that way, I think, yeah.
Yeah, like you also bring an homage to the past and take it into the future. Thank you so much, John. You will be with us again at the end of this program at the wrap-up. But can I get a really loud applause for John?
Thank you.
So, are you ready for our next speaker, or actually speakers? Oh, okay. Then I'm happy to announce them, because our next speakers, well, actually, we're going to have a presentation by 100 Rabbits. And that's a small but well-known artist collective exploring low-tech solutions for building a more resilient future. This is done in the, lowest tech environment possible, because they live and work abroad of their 10-meter length sailboat called Pinot, in the most remote parts of the world. And from there, they make games and tools and other applications. Because they are currently sailing around the Pacific Ocean, we're going to share a pre-recorded presentation with you. However, we are also attempting to connect with them through a live video connection for the Q&A. So we're really hardworking to make that a reality. But for now, I would invite you to watch their presentation that they prepared for you. Enjoy and give them a round of applause.
Hello, Utrecht. My name is Rek, and this is Dymphie. We are 100 Rabbits, and we're speaking to you from our floating office, which is moored in Victoria, BC, Canada. So we're sorry that we couldn't be there with you. But for the last 10 years, we've lived and worked aboard a 10-meter-long sailboat named Pinot, which we've taken all over the Pacific. Living aboard a sailboat got us interested in the methods of communication that people used before the arrival of electronics, many of which are being forgotten. In this 2024 edition of Iterations, we'd like to present to you the ones that we explored during our research for a novel that we released last year. All that we will show you today is totally analog, but I'm certain that you'll find ways to weave these into your world building or computer projects, or find very practical when technology fails. So the first method of communication that I'm going to talk about is Morse code. You're probably familiar with it. It's been around for a very long time. It's usually associated with radio, but it's possible to communicate with it using things like flags, sequences of blinking lights, or with instruments. Morse code is a way to encode letters, numbers, and punctuation in sequences of short and long sounds. The short sound is referred to as a dot, and the long sound is referred to as a dash, or dit and daw for short. So I'm going to play some Morse for you now. What you just heard was the code for SOS. You probably noticed, but the sounds are really uniform, so it doesn't exactly produce a pleasant melody. But the fact that it's uniform ensures that it's easier to make out when it's really noisy. If the person sending the Morse code uses proper timing and spacing, it's relatively simple to decode. Anyone with a pen and paper can note the characters down to decode later using a reference. In the Swedish film Let the Right One In, this is what Oscar uses to converse with Ellie. There's a moment in the movie where they tap messages to each other in Morse code through a shared wall. Morse code was also adapted to represent non-Latin alphabets. The codes were assigned to letters based on their resemblance and their similar pronunciation to Latin characters. Like, for instance, the Greek B was assigned the same code as the Latin B, mainly because it looks the same, even if it sounds like the English V. In that case, its resemblance to B prevails. Adapting Morse for languages with more characters, like Chinese, was a bit more challenging. They couldn't assign series of dots and dashes to characters directly because there's so many. So instead, what they did is they assigned strings of 4 numbers ranging from 0000 to 9999 to each character. And even that isn't enough because there's just way too many characters. But that was their best option. I mentioned before that it was possible to signal Morse using flags. So these are the main positions. There's not that many of them. There's one for dash, for dot, to indicate the separation of dots and dashes, and another to indicate the separation of letters, groups, or words. There's also a flag position to indicate if the message needs to be repeated, or to erase part of the transmission. Semaphore literally means apparatus for signaling. As I mentioned before, you can use fire, you can use lights, flags, sunlight, and moving arms to transmit visual signals over long distances. There was a time when semaphore networks spanned the length of entire countries. Like with the image I have here, you can see all the semaphore. With such a system, it was possible to send messages under an hour. Sending messages with smoke is the oldest method of communication. But the messages were generally very limited in their meaning, and everybody had their own code. There was no standard. When signaling with flags, you don't need to use Morse code. The alphabet was encoded to flag positions too, which is much more elaborate. When reciting the alphabet with flags, you'll notice that the motion is circular. That's because it was based on an early semaphore design called the Popham semaphore, pictured here. The Japanese also made up their own flag semaphore, which was adapted to fit their writing system, which has way more characters than the Latin alphabet. Most characters require 2 flag positions to complete, like with a, and some require 3, like with ho. It's possible to signal Morse code by flashing sunlight with a mirror. The device that is used to do that is called a heliograph. The flashes are produced by turning the mirror or by obscuring the beam of light with a shutter. The heliograph was portable. It didn't require a power source, and communication was private because it was only visible from a certain position. And at night, it was possible to signal Morse code using a signaling lamp. So as you can see, Morse code was designed for a variety of situations. But there's many other methods of communication which are much more specific. And like smoke signals, they're mainly understood by the people operating in or near that environment. A good example is the bosun's whistle. It's an instrument with a piercing sound that was used to pass commands to the crew on a ship. It was possible to hear it even in bad weather, whether the crew was aloft or somewhere down in the cabin. And that's what it looks like. It's a sort of elaborate whistle. It consists of a narrow tube which directs air over a metal sphere with a hole in the top. The person making a call would open and close their hand over the hole to change the pitch. So there's 4 main hand positions which produce a different sound, but you can also use your mouth to produce different calls. The sound is likely familiar to you. It's common to hear it in movies. And this is what it sounds like. That was the general call. It's a sound that is usually piped before making announcements. The bosun's whistle was a way to pass commands in a small environment, like on a ship. But when the captain wants to warn other ships in the area, then they use their ship's horn, which has its own code. The horns can produce a combination of short and long blasts. One long blast means that the ship is approaching a bend and that it can't see ahead. And they sound that one long blast to alert other boaters that they're coming and to indicate their position. While 3 long horn blasts means that the ship is backing up. It's commonly heard when a ship is about to leave a port. Like we hear that sound almost every day because of the ferry that comes in and out of the harbor. Whether at sea or on land, meaning is encoded in a variety of symbols, more often to communicate danger or information on local conditions. Some signal codes were developed in the early 20th century so that people on the ground could communicate with aircraft in the sky. So people would use their arms, like gesture with their arms, or draw symbols on the ground. These are standard symbols, so pilots would know what they mean. And at sea, boats sometimes use what is called day shapes, which are geometric shapes like a sphere, a cylinder, a diamond, and a cone, to communicate simple information. Each shape was assigned a meaning. You can use them alone or combine them with other shapes, and that changes the meaning. And some methods of communication are really local. Like in Denmark in 1858, the Skagen Lighthouse would hang this banner on the north side so that ships could see it, ships coming in from the north. And the presence and positions of the squares on the banner indicated whether or not there was ice in nearby harbors. Like each square was assigned a harbor. It could communicate 16 different states. And finally, a way to communicate that I really like is signaling using the International Code of Signals. Each letter of the alphabet is encoded on the flag with a unique design. And each letter also has a phonetic word formed designed to set them apart from similar sounding letters like B, V, and D. And that's something that's really, really useful when spelling on the phone. You can fly a series of flags to spell words, but each flag also has another assigned meaning to convey safety or navigational information quickly. For instance, The Oscar flag, or the O flag, means man overboard. And when paired with another flag, the flags take on more specific meanings. For instance, when the uniform and whiskey flags are flown together in that order, it means I wish you a pleasant voyage. It's also possible to append numbers to add even more information, like when you're communicating medical emergencies, you can get really specific. Like, I really love the idea that sailors could have simple conversations by way of flags alone. So all of these codes are documented in the International Code of Signals book. And many navies have their own proprietary or secret codes, which make use of additional flags. People who speak French, Italian, German, Japanese, Spanish, Norwegian, Russian, and Greek all have a book with equivalent messages assigned to the same code. So if a ship is nearby, but that you don't speak their language, you could yell Victa. And this will be understood to mean I require assistance. And Victa is the phonetic word form for the Victor flag, or V flag. In the 1960s, Hannah Wiener composed poems using the 1859 version of the International Code of Signals, which is really different than the current version. It had a lot more words and used fewer flags. And with it, she wrote a version of Romeo and Juliet entitled RJ. She used the signal codes to write all the dialogue. It's really, really, really fun to read. And then what's cool is that in 1968, US Coast Guard
Sometimes can go wrong. Let me see. Technical support. Do you need a few minutes?
And with it, she wrote a version of Romeo and Juliet entitled RJ. She used the signal codes to write all the dialogue. It's really, really, really fun to read. And then what's cool is that in 1968, US Coast Guard signalers performed RJ in Central Park using flag semaphore. So Hannah Wiener and others like herself involved with the language poets, they emphasized both speech and everyday language in their work. Their goal was for the reader to participate in creating the meaning of the poem. Hannah herself was interested in exploring methods of communication that would be understood face-to-face or at any distance, regardless of language, country, planet, or origin, by all sending and receiving. Dymphie and I share these same goals. Explaining the inner workings of ICS codes, Morse codes, or day shapes serves to pass on worthwhile knowledge. It also offers a new dimension of language. And when writing stories, it becomes yet another way to create a sense of culture. In our own explorations of this space, we stumbled upon Solgesel. And now, Devine's going to talk about that.
During the writing of the novel Wictifer, we looked for ways for characters in the book to encode meaning into music. For example, the Silbo Gomero is a whistled language where Spanish is transposed into whistles, like the pitch and whistles. We wanted something like it, but the book that we were writing didn't have, the Spanish base that we could rely on. And looking into these kind of alternative ways to communicate, we found the work of composer and music teacher Jean-François Sudre, who appears to have coined the word telephone almost 2 decades before Alexander Graham Bell was born, which is kind of interesting. In the 1800s, the French government banned the teaching of sign language to deaf and mute children. I think the government believed that the teaching of sign language was hindering the ability for these children to learn to converse. But Sudre wasn't going to have that, and I think it inspired him to look for alternatives. I think the ban remained until pretty late, like 1977, something like that. But Sudre's idea of telecommunication was to use the 7 notes of the chromatic scale to transmit meaning. And he created a language called Sol Re Sol. This is the chromatic scale. And for example, this is the word Sol Re Sol played in Sol Re Sol. Other than using instruments, Sol Re Sol can also be communicated using the Kerwin hand signs, which assigns a hand gesture for each of the 7 notes. I've included here on the slide other encoding, like Braille and ASCII or even Shavian. But you might be familiar with the hand signs from the movie Close Encounters. In it, the French scientists used the same hand signs to supposedly speak with the aliens who might be communicating with something like tones or Sol Re Sol. In it, I guess the government officials are passed around this paper that has, these hand signs, and the scientist uses them to tell the piano player which notes to play. I think you might be familiar with the tones if I just played them. Well, these don't mean anything in Sol Re Sol, and the notes in the movie, I think they were chosen nearly at random, but based on the idea that acoustic principles are universal. So a string vibrating in one galaxy will have the same harmonic partials as it would do here. I mean, the 5 notes used in the movie, I don't think it correlates to anything in Sol Re Sol. There are so few 5-letter words, and I think the 5 letters dictionary was never completed, or maybe it was completed after Sudre's death. But in Sol Re Sol, notes are letters, and letters together are combined to create words. So, for example, single notes will correspond to elementary articles that you use in everyday speech, and here we have a table of the 2 notes permutations, and it's for things like pronouns, and there are some question words in there, and casual things like good morning, good evening. I think in this table here, if we look at the bottom, at the bottom right, we can see that the original Sol Re Sol had some strange ideas of universality by allocating, these very, I guess, expensive 2-letter permutation words for things like Mr. and young man. I think those were, taken away or have turned archaic by the more modern Sol Re Sol speakers and communities. And there's also a whole swath of 3 notes words for things like God, Christ, the Holy Trinity, sanctify, husband, heresy, all sorts of things in regards to monarchy, but we wanted to do away with all these, so we had to do some changes for the dictionary we would use for the dialect we would use in our book, but the basic idea remains, and the changes, we tried to respect the original idea of the language. But to give you a sense of the changes we had to do, so the word mi sol re was originally meaning the grace of God, to give you an idea, and but the verb, a simple verb to enter, to enter a room or something, was pushed all the way back to 4-letter words. So we I guess we optimized it in some way, the permutation table for 2 notes word, we modified it a bit, and the one we used for the book is this one here. And we did away with some of the more archaic forms and meanings, and we sort of followed what the more modern Sol Re Sol speakers were using. The language had a pretty playful idea that I haven't seen in other conlangs or other languages, is that by reversing a word, for example, the Sol Re Sol word mi sol, for kind, is the opposite of sol mi, which means mean. It's as if we could replace, reverse the English word bad for dab, and then you would have, the word for good. In the 3 notes words, there's a bit of the dissymmetry that remains, but you can kind of tell that Sudre just gave up at one point and started listing, one word after the other without minding the symmetry too much. But we tried to make some changes and replace some of the more archaic words with symmetrical words as much as we could, because I thought it was a nice way of condensing the dictionary and reducing, I guess, the number of words that one has to learn. You can just learn the word for good to understand, the word for mean, or hear the word for always or never, or ease or difficult, laugh, cry, that sort of things. Sudre spent years compiling dictionaries for this language, but most of the later work was done by Josephine Sudre after Sudre's death. There's a lot of word types that we can identify. So for example, we can categorize words with letters that are sequential. So one thing that we did is we wanted every words made up of letters that follow each other to mean a sort of action, and they just look really nice. And we tried to do something like a symmetry for their opposites, like to give, to take, there would be like reversible words basically. The language is sort of like, I guess, concatenative in a way. So we tried to reduce the number of vocabulary that one would have to learn, because it gets pretty confusing fast trying to understand what the message is being sent across using notes. We used a form similar to Japanese, where the verbs tend to sort of like operate on whatever is coming before, and they often end sentences. So, for example, like a typical sentence would be something like, "This is the apple that I eat." To eat would be like the last word of the sentence. It seemed like it makes the language a tiny bit easier to understand. Like each word is separated by a pause, but sometimes it's kind of hard to tell when one end and the other begins. And but there are some things that work really well. So we tried. So similarly to how English works, if we flip the verb and the pronouns, we have something like a question form. So do I? I, dore, in sol re sol. That's a pretty easy word to tell, and when it ends a sentence, you can kind of tell that it's a question. And little tricks like this made it more, I guess, palatable. Beyond using notes and even hand signs, some people we noticed that really like to write out the whole word, basically. And this allows for some pretty interesting things. We can condense the words in sol re sol further than spelling out the whole thing. And I think this form is called ses, and I'll show you how it works. So if we hear the word for sol re sol, we can compress the whole word by alternating by taking a consonant and a vowel of each note. So sol re sol will become ses. The first S of sol, the E of re, and the S of sol. For example, if we take like a more complex example, mi fa re sol sol re mi si fa si. Here we have, the sentence here just means please more slowly. Actually, I'll do it again slowly. Mi fa re sol sol re mi si fa si. So this sentence, which I have given no intonation or pitch whatsoever, can be condensed into this mar su rita fiu. And the way it works is that for conflicting sounds like si and sol, have the same first letter, or la and fa have the same ending letter, we'll use something like su for sol, lau for la, tu for si, and that sort of like gets rid of the conflicts. It can be even condensed even further, but I won't get into that. So yeah, I guess that covers the whole language. It's quite easy to learn. It relies on very few primitives. And it's what we picked for the characters in the book to encode their poems and their stories and to communicate with each other across long distances. So, sol re sol was created maybe nearly 200 years ago, and where is it now? Well, probably you haven't heard about the language because even the attempt at reviving the language mostly failed or were forgotten or just bit-rotted into oblivion. There was a sol re sol revival project in 2010, and now the page is only available on Wayback Machine. And up until recently, there was the Sidusi community, which did amazing work in modernizing the language, but unfortunately, the webmaster died in 2023, and the domain failed to be passed on to someone else, and now it's a gambling website. Languages die when there's no longer speakers interested in giving them life, when radio courses no longer teach people the phonetic alphabet or how to understand Morse. Technologies have a way to insert themselves between people, and displace the more analog means of conversation. But when these technologies fail, and they will people remember how to talk to each other? I think that's kind of like what we want to explore with these projects.
100 rabbits.
We hope that you've enjoyed our little presentation and that you'll find a reason to play with and keep these analog techniques alive. If you do, let us know. We'd love to see what you make. We'll stick around for a QA, so please ask us anything. We'll have to turn off the camera so it's not too slow, but we'll be here.
Okay. So, we have some good news and some bad news. Which one would you like to hear first? The bad news? Okay, the bad news is we weren't able to make a video connection. The good news now, we were able to make an audio connection. So with us are Rek and Dymphie. I'm going to rebuild the stage a little bit. So they can hear you too, and they can also see you a little bit still, while the connection is still stable enough. And I want to ask you, can you make the loudest noise you have made today or maybe even this year? Because then I hope they can hear you somewhere around the Pacific Ocean. So 1, 2, 3.
We can hear that, yes.
Rek and Dymphie, did you hear that?
Yes.
Ah, great. I'm so happy that you're with us today. You were able to make it. So where are you located right now?
Victoria, which is on the west coast of Canada.
Ah, okay.
It's very early.
It sounds like it's sunnier there than here. Everyone was... it is. Everyone was listening to your presentation really carefully, and I'm pretty sure there are some questions from the audience as well, and we'd like to give the audience members the opportunity to ask some questions. Also for the online viewers, put your questions in the chat so we can ask them again. So is there anyone here that has a question? Come on, this is your only chance, right? Okay. Can I ask you to come up on the stage, because it would be nice for them to also see you, yeah? Okay, so here's our first contestant, Rek and Dymphie. Okay, give you the mic.
Hello, my name is Hai. Yeah, it's not really a question, I just really like the illustrations, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about them.
Stick around, make yourself comfortable here. Did you hear that question?
Yes, I heard it. I'm an illustrator, and I like seabirds, I like rabbits, and that comes through in everything that I make. But I think that is specifically from a project that we just released called Rabbit Waves, which does exactly what I talked about in the presentation. That it just teaches alternate methods of communication, but it'll expand into other things that we like fermentation, and anyway, like the drawings are also on there. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say, but I mean, it's just...
Well, he's satisfied, he's nodding, so it's good. Well, thank you for that question. Okay, don't be shy now, right? Because it can be a little bit scary to be up here, but this is the only way for them to also see you, and I think it's nice to make that human connection as well. Anyone else? Yeah,
the seat is right behind the iteration poster, so whenever someone comes up, they just sit behind the poster.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna take away the chair. It was a little bit too comfortable. Hey, what is your name and what is your question? There's the camera so they can see you.
Hey, hello. My name is Lucas, and I was just wondering, how did you end up on a sailboat?
I'll take that one. Well, it seemed like the only option that was available for us at the time. Like, we had some pretty... We were living in Japan at the time, and we wanted to try a different way of living. And there's not many options right now that allows us the sort of freedom to explore the projects that we like in the way we like it, other than sailing. It complexifies a lot of things, but I mean, it forces us to move with the seasons, which was one of the goals that we had. It allows us to go to places that you just can't reach by car or by even by cycling. I think it's a good compromise with the values that we have and the pacing that we like to do things at. Removing rent really helped us, to explore some ideas and open source projects that we wanted to do. I think it's sort of like the frontier where people leave you alone, let you do your things in your own way, and that's why we moved on the boat.
Thank you, Lucas. Also, so the choice you made by living on the boat, has this also had the impact you expected in terms of your creative output? I mean, also, because all the modern technology suddenly isn't always available anymore.
I can answer that one too, I guess. I think it impacted our work more than we expected, because we had a pretty naive outlook on technology. I think we thought it would be fine to keep doing iOS development on the water, which it isn't. I think it advised our choices enough that it just changed how we do everything now. We can't rely on like all the services now that require you to have an account or to be online. We have to use computers that are repairable. So we came from like doing iOS development on Apple Macintosh laptops, and now it's sort of like we use like a jerry-rigged ThinkPads and like make up Frankenstein laptops just so we can keep working, because it's the only way that we can repair the devices when we're away.
So only if you can fix it yourself, right?
Yeah.
What lessons from this low-tech lifestyle do you think can be applied to everyday life or creative practices in high-tech settings? It's almost a philosophical question.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have this idea. I think collapse is inevitable. It's sort of like one of the things that we sort of go back to. Like it's hard to go from, like, it's either we keep building on the scaffolding that we have today and make sure that it never fails. But I think like the biggest lessons is, I forget who said this, but the saying was sort of like, if you think that technology will solve your problem, you don't understand technology and you don't understand your problems. And I think that's the hubris of modern technology, is that people think it will just keep going. And I think that's basically like mistake number one.
Good reminder. Is there anyone else from the audience that has a question, or maybe some of the online viewers? Yeah, come up here. Hey, what is your name and what is your question?
Hi, my name is Sander. Hi, thanks for the lecture. Yeah, that was the thing that struck me the most when visiting your website, which is a really dense sort of compendium of knowledge, you could say. How do you balance the collective and the individual? Because I saw some disclaimers sometimes about above certain articles mentioning that there's structural things needing to be done alongside like the individual preparations. And isn't this like a big, how do you deal with the paradox in that or something?Maybe a bit of a deep question, but I was wondering about that. Thanks.
That's a good question. We're a small collective of 2 people, but also we're surrounded by people who help us. And we would not be able to do what we do the way we do it if we were alone. Like, I guess one of the biggest lessons that you get moving on a sailboat and sailing around the world is that you're only as strong as your network and the people that you have around you. I mean, we would be, underwater right now if we didn't have the people around us to lend us tools, to teach us how to fix things, to give us the knowledge that we needed. And in exchange, we hopefully, had the same effect on them. But there's a lot of myth. There's like this aesthetic of like the people who cross the ocean on their own, but you don't have to look very far into these stories to find that they had massive support networks. And I think one of the missions that we have is just to break these sort of like stories apart, because from the outside it might look like people are, yeah, they're independent, they're self-sufficient and this and that, but really, like, when you come to look into it like deeply, it's all people who have, you know, extensive social networks around them. That's the only way that allows them to do what they do. So on our website we saw that some people were like, oh yeah, okay, cool, I have all the knowledge now to go live in the woods. And that's definitely not the message that we want to give. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, you can go live in the woods, but surround yourself with people who can help you when you get sick, or who can offload some of the work for you and have strengths that you don't have. I think that's usually the most important bit gets overlooked.
Yeah, so there are ideas that are shared in many spheres. I think that's the problem. But yeah.
Yeah, it's weird when your projects appeal to like libertarians.
So even if you choose to live and work in remote areas, then surround yourself with community.
Yes.
And also, thanks a lot for the website and all the things you post there. It's really out there. It's lo-fi. It's accessible, and it just really helped me to know a lot of to learn a lot of things. So thanks for that.
That's great.
You're welcome.
And maybe also nice to know about that website. It was 100r.co. You can also find like live updates there all the time. So that is also a nice feature. Another question? Yeah, come up here. What is your name and question? And there's the camera.
Hi, Rack and Divine. My name is Joost. I'm part of the production as well. We meet over email. First of all, happy birthday. I understood that it's yeah.
Wait a second. Which one of you is having a birthday today?
It's me. It's Rec.
Okay, well, talking about community, can we have a happy birthday really short then? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
They're good.
I hope you received that one and felt it in your heart. Thank you, Joost, for mentioning. And now your question.
It's also a little, maybe a silly thing, but I was really impressed by the language you were researching in the xylophone, like the do, re, mi, fa, sol language. But do you use it actually to get on the boat? Maybe if you're arguing about something, maybe do you use it to communicate in that way?
Yeah, if you don't have the energy to use words, use music. Okay, good question.
Oh yeah, when we calling each other names, you know, like we take out the recorder and just a beep beep beep.
I love
No,
that
it's principally for the stories.
Yeah. You were interested in maybe using this to save your relationships.
I will look into it.
Move a little bit to here.
I will look into it again. Also the video, I really enjoyed it. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Joost. Okay, Rick and Dymphie, we're almost at the end of this Q&A. We are trying to make a connection with you again for the wrap-up at the end of this day. But is there anything left that you would like to say or give to the audience as an advice or something, or last words?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for having us. It was cool to have the opportunity to not talk about freaking programming for once in a while. I think like it's interesting to see computation, you know, outside of the machine itself, and like encoding, communication, all these kind of things, you know, they can be done really well with like analog techniques, paper, lights, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, like trying to keep that knowledge alive for us, it's sort of a, you know, like a side quest, like not a side quest, it's sort of like we're using, you know, pretty pictures and rabbits and illustrations and stuff as a subversive way of like, you know, getting people to learn about food preservation and pickling and growing stuff, and I hope you try, like find ways outside of the computer screen to make art and generative stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I think that also matches up a little bit with what John, our previous speaker, said. So thank you so much for that reminder. We will take it by heart, and we hope to hear you later on. Thank you so much, Rek and Dymphie from 100 Rabbits. One more really, really loud applause. So what are we gonna do next is we're gonna have a short break to recharge. You can grab some refreshments at the bar and reconnect with the fellow audience members. Also for the audience online, 20-minute break, and then we will start again at 4 o'clock with our last speaker, Kim Le Boutin. And also for the people here in the building, outside we have Dr. Mindflip, aka Patrick, with his Rivery Garden experimental music game. You can all experience and play. It's also here at the bar, and he developed this during his residency at CCU. So I want to have you back in this room by 4, so actually rather 2 minutes before 4. So enjoy, inspire each other, and see you later. Oh. Okay. If you didn't get back to your seat yet, grab one. Everyone in the hallway that still wants to join, come in and take a seat. Everyone online, I hope you are ready as well. Got some refreshments to go. Drop your favorite emoji for us to know that you're still there. Let's see what everyone is gonna send me now. Okay, back at it. Still got some energy? Yeah? Oh, that sounds pretty good actually for after break. I heard you were already really good with the whole audience interaction and also the level of applause that you're giving all the speakers here. I do want to check it a little bit how the applause is going to be after the break, because well, just give me, what was your average applause before the break? Can you let me hear it? Okay. So if on a scale of 1 to 10, this is a 7, what would a 1 sound like? Thank you, I needed that. No. What would a 10 sound like? I also needed that to make up for that one. Okay, so our next speaker, she's our final speaker today, and she's a digital artist and innovation expert who started coding at age 14 already. So from becoming Kenzo Paris' first digital art director to co-founding the digital design agency Dymphie, leading up to her own creative consulting network today, our next speaker has shaped digital narratives for some of the world's most iconic brands. So remember, I want to hear a 10. Let's warmly welcome Kim Boutin.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. Thank you for the 10. It was really like making me feel great. And I needed that because basically I was here to talk about something, and then, you know, this is the last talk, so I change everything just like today. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to talk about, and I wanted to say so many things, but I can't because I just have not even an hour, and then I have to catch a train and go back to France, and I'm losing time right now, so let's do it. So, glitching digital worlds with friction. This is the name I found this morning. Some forewords. So I started being into computers at a really young age. So this is me. I'm 18 months, and this is my sister. She's 6 months. And I loved interfaces. But interfaces are not just what's on the screen. It's also the computer itself. And I loved all of that. I loved all of that so much that at some point, okay, the story is my dad is a computer engineer. He builds robots. That's also why we had computers. And the internet soon, like at a really young age. At some point, the floppy disk reader at the front of the Macintosh was not working, and my dad couldn't find his credit card anymore. So he dismantled the computer, and he finds his credit card in the computer, and it was me. I saw him using an ATM machine, and I thought, you just put the card here, and then you get money. But I didn't like money. I liked the interaction, right? So then, okay, 2001, I was playing Dark Age of Camelot, which is one of the first MMORPG. I was a paladin. I loved that video game a lot. I loved interacting with people on that video game more than interacting with people, at school. And then I started coding because I don't know. Yeah, and also I was kind of like a dark teenager. So my blog was named Dear Sadness, but it's not a name that I came up with. It's a book from Françoise Sagan, Bonjour Tristesse. So I translated it in English, but still it's a bit dark. So yeah, I was basically changing the layout every month or whatever, and I was, like drawing stuff, scanning them, and mixing that up. And then it was a blog, and I was just writing stuff, and I just took this screenshot yesterday, and I was like, I started reading, and I was like, what the hell? I was publishing all of that, and I didn't remember. So then I called my therapist, and anyways. So then, 2010, still on a computer, and no, I'm not sponsored by Apple, but somehow there are lots of Apple computers everywhere around me. So, but what I wanted to introduce here is like, what is the technological context of that timeline? So 2010, we have the iMac, we have the iPod, we have the MacBook, we have the iPhone, and we have the App Store, and we have 3G. And there is 1 million iPhones sold worldwide. And at that time, I started working for an agency named Blondie in Paris. It was a digital agency specialized in e-commerce for fashion and luxury brands. I had no idea what e-commerce was then, because it was the very beginning of e-commerce, and also of mobile apps. At that time, it's the beginning of Stripe, which is a payment system that is everywhere now. It's the beginning of Google Pay as well, and Facebook ads. And then 2012, I left that position, and I was hired by the fashion brand Kenzo. And also, I should say, I stopped doing my blog because it was not cool at all. And so I was working at Kenzo, and they hired me to be in between the digital team and the image team, who used to, well, still, they hate each other, basically. And I was there as digital art director, which a name that we made up then to make them both happy. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be fun. And it's 2012, again, going back to the technological background there, beginning of WebGL, which is embedding 3D on the web browsers. And the video game stuff, I was like, yeah, this is happening on the browsers. This is going to be cool. It's also the moment where Facebook decided to buy Instagram, and everyone thought, what? And now everyone is like, yeah. The iPhone 5 and 4G, and more iPhones sold worldwide. And this is a type of stuff I was doing for Kenzo. I think there was a talk before. John said that he was using code to make illustrations. And what's funny is that when I was at Kenzo, they asked me to make illustrations, and I decided to make code. So they were like, can you make something for the website, like a GIF? And I was like, we can do something like interactive. So I started doing these iframes that was a bit stupid, but always based on patterns from the brand. Here is another one, like, I don't know, like painting nails, context, and it reveals patterns. Just coming up with stupid ideas, and, like, they were like, cool. And after that, they were like, that's the internet. So many different little games like this that I was designing, and then I started asking for more budget to hire my friends, developers, to make bigger projects. And then a really good friend of mine, I'm still working with him today, it was his first freelance job, and he told me, okay, maybe I'm going to charge, I don't know, like 200. And I told him, just add a 0. He's like, okay, don't forget, like Kenzo apart is from LVMH. So they need to give some money to some nerds. It's important. And then I had to redo the e-commerce website because I had this background in e-commerce websites. And when I left this former company, I was really bored with them. But then at Kenzo, they were like, whoa, you need to help us redo the e-com. And I ended up doing that kind of by myself. It was like 300 screens for Kenzo.com. And they were using Drupal, which is like a framework for e-com. And they were moving to Salesforce. So like a huge project, and I was really young, and people were seeing me as just intern, whatever girl who's there, and it was not so easy. Anyways, it was also the beginning of VR. It was also the beginning of OpenAI. And then I did this project, which was WebGL, which was inspired by video games in terms of navigation. So it was for a campaign launch, and you were able to browse the room, like an imaginary gallery, art gallery that was displaying the videos of the campaign. And that website, so I designed it, we were three, there was a 3D designer, there was a WebGL developer who was like he's still a genius, and there was me. And, you know, usually, I mean, here it's, you know, we know that we are like misfits, like not misfits, but like we are not representing everyone in the world. But basically, I'm sorry to say, but people don't care about websites most of the time. But then this one suddenly had raised some interest, and I had this article in the T magazine of the Times about that website, and I thought, oh, there is something interesting there. So left my job, moved to London, started my company to make more websites like this one. That was 2015. And as it was said in the introduction, I did work with a lot of brands, and this is mainly due to my work at Kenzo. So it kind of opened the door for more fashion brands, but also tech brands and brands. And these are some examples of the work I did with the studio that I've been running for 8 years. More e-commerce and AR. But you know, like sometimes, for instance, this one is like a small fashion brand, and it was before we had the markers detection on Instagram. So it was a Unity app to build AR, like an augmented garment. So I worked on what was printed on the garments, and I created this interface. And what I wanted to create was the beginning of the face filters, is that with this AR, you would have to involve your body. You would have to move to discover what's in this 3D space and what's in this interface. Games. Sorry, I'm going quick because I have a lot of slides. And as I said, it's the first time I'm trying this, so I don't know how it's gonna end up. Anyways, I also started teaching. And I was asked to start teaching user experience design, how to build digital interfaces. So I started doing that at London College of Fashion. And, yeah, okay, we go there. Okay, and then so after teaching, I did spend a lot of time with people younger than me, but not that younger. And some of them were coming back to school in September and saying, oh, I did a digital detox during the summer, and I thought, this is not right. So I decided to, you know, COVID happened, and I decided to go back to studies myself while running the studio. I went to a French university called Paris 8, which is where Deleuze and Guattari used to teach. And I wrote a master thesis. I wanted to do a PhD, but you have to have a master thesis to do a PhD in France. So I wrote that, Glitch in the Meta. And it was very, very inspiring for me to have a framework for thinking about what I was doing as a job, because I felt like I couldn't continue doing these interfaces, producing all these interfaces that would take ages to build, and then they were online for just a few weeks. And also sometimes the realization that digital could be, you know, a disaster for some people, and especially for the young people. So I was really inspired by the reading of Glitch Feminism from Legacy Russell. She defines the glitch as an error, a mistake, and a failure to function. And in this manifesto, she wants to say that the glitch can be a form of refusal, like creating glitches to refuse the state of things. And at the same time, I was already questioning the relevancy of having this studio, but I got the approach to make a project with Henrietta Moore. She's an amazing woman, social anthropologist, and she's basically someone who's giving advice to G7, and she makes like spreadsheets, and she shows to these people that if they invest money in sustainability, they're gonna make more money later. She's this kind of woman, and I had to understand her research and to build something interactive for an exhibition at the Barbican in London. And so this is the outcome. It's a video game where so there is a screen in front of you and you interact with an iPad. And it's a video game where you decide to embody a character that can be a river, a bird, a mountain, a glacier, and also a human. So these are the symbols of all the different characters you can embody. And then at the top of the screen, at the top of the display, there were these provocations that Henrietta wrote, which were also very important inspiration for the project itself. And we did an interview. I was like, you can see, I'm like really like a kid. Like, I felt like so proud that she would just even talk to me. And that was kind of game-changing for me because I thought, okay, it looks like there is a way for me to embrace things I like that seem to not work together. The work I do doesn't always have to be for fashion brand to sell shoes. It can be also to help this amazing lady who told me, but maybe she was being nice, that it was one of the best projects she did in the year. And she does a lot of projects. So this is the interface. Ooh, we are supposed to have sound here. So this is what you see within the video game. So again, you can probably notice that the interface is really inspired by video games, mainly Nintendo, mainly Zelda, if I'm very precise. But also the sound design was very important. And anyway, so it's just to show you how it looks when you play. And after that, I closed the studio. I closed it last year. And what was fun is that the closing was planned and everything. And then I was about to go on holidays, and the studio was closed already, but the announcement was planned on Instagram as an automatic post. And then suddenly I received a lot of messages, and I was about to go on a boat. I was about to go sailing. So this is me taking the picture to announce that, I'm closing the studio, by the way, because all my friends were like, what the heck? What's happening? You're closing the studio? You didn't say anything? But it was really fun to just like go on a boat. In French, we say prendre le large. I don't know how to translate that. But it means like you go away on the sea and you just don't go backward. So I'm going to talk about standardization, an era of standardization. We talked about websites. If you've been there yesterday as well, we talked about dead websites as well. So here is like the evolution of amounts of websites online, and currently there is more than 1 billion websites online in the world, and only 17% of them are active. So there's lots of dead. But we could think of the same, like how many dead people on this planet, and anyways. So because of this amount of websites, but you all know that, so I'm going to go very quickly. We needed compatibility, we needed accessibility. These are topics that we've been discussing about. W3C. We also created this concept of usability. This is David Bowie. For David Bowie and other people, we were browsing all these websites. We needed to guarantee that it was easy to use. So it was a smooth navigation, and that was not causing any frustration. But it kind of led to like extreme things like that. Book, and the subtitle is A Common Sense Approach to Web Usability, and it's one of the most sold books about web design on this planet. So it was written by a consultant, and for him, the best website is Amazon.com. And you see, the title is Don't Make Me Think. So the purpose, if you want to do a good website, is that people don't think. That's an interesting approach. And then there was also the smartphones. And here I tried to translate a book in French from a socio-anthropologist from Ed in Switzerland. He said in his book, which is called Smartphones, as devices evolve, the smartphone is gradually becoming an increasingly exclusive way of interacting with the world around us, to buy public transport tickets, to check an itinerary, or to order all sorts of goods remotely. So basically, this capacity of absorbing all this usage. Oh, here.
An iPod,
I
a
forgot.
phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
I forgot to introduce that we're going to watch a little video of Steve Jobs announcing the iPhone in 2007. And we're going to, and this is just some extracts that, you know, like, we've all seen, I think, this keynote, but it's very interesting to look at it now, I think. So I took some extracts, sorry.
What we want to do is make a leapfrog product that is way smarter than any mobile device has ever been and super easy to use. This is what iPhone is, okay? So, we're going to reinvent the phone. Now, we're going to start
little product placement
with a revolutionary user interface.
So I think this moment where he's announcing the revolution, well, I'm tired. Yeah, that, I think that was very important, and that's not something that I really noticed back then.
Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen. Now, how are we going to communicate this? We don't want to carry around a mouse, right? So what are we going to do? Oh, a stylus, right? We're going to use a stylus. No. No. Who wants a stylus? You have to get them and put them away and you lose them. Yuck. Nobody wants a stylus. So let's not use a stylus. We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. We're going to use a pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We're going to use our fingers. We're going to touch this with our fingers. And we have invented a new technology called multi-touch, which is phenomenal.
It works like magic. So iPhone is a revolutionary user interface. I managed to say it. It's removing the fixed button controls. It's a giant screen with multi-touch interactions, which make it a versatile interface, which gives it the capacity to absorb a whole range of services, as Nicolas Nova was saying in his book. So the mobile-first era. This is a click farm in Vietnam, the country of my mom. And in 2016, there was this shift where the internet traffic on mobile overtook the computer traffic for the first time. And as we were looking during the timeline before, this is due to technology, because we had 4G. And guidelines. So even in 1984, when the Macintosh was released, there was a human interface guidelines for Apple desktop interface. And still today, there are guidelines that are dictating what we should do to make good interfaces. But not only good, because these are going to be the guidelines that are going to dictate if your app is going to be approved or not on the App Store. And the same with Google, with material design. So eventually, these guidelines have not just been influencing the way we design mobile apps, but it has spread across all the digital design in general. And these practices have been proved efficient, but efficient to do what? Selling stuff, for instance. And so it's a quest of fluidity and speed and usability again. So we go with Chaplin, with his little boss. And guess what? Here are the people who create stuff online, and this is Steve and his mates. It's a very stupid drawing, I know. But that's also one thing I did while preparing this keynote. I watched again this movie from Chaplin, and I was like, oh, it's so interesting. So frictionless design, we talked a lot about friction. So here is a quote from the Apple review. So it's like the page where Apple gives advice to us or to people who design stuff online. It's from 2021. It's not there anymore, but they were then saying, frictionless design guarantees simple, practical, and fast experiences. It enables users to perform tasks with the least possible effort and cognitive capacity. Duh. Okay. So this is invisible design. To be effective, design must be clear, fluid, and easy to use. In the lexicon of interface design, we speak of seamless interaction or frictionless design. Invisible like a cloud. A cloud. A cloud. So if we navigate spaces that are made to not make me think, oh, that was cute, how can I feel any emotion? And I think we can use glitch. And this is another quote from Legacy Russell, who says, through the digital, we make new worlds and dare to modify our own. Emotion, etymologically, means to put in motion. Interface means between faces. Okay, this is too long. This is French philosophy. But basically, I wanted to share this experience of like going to Japan, to the Setouchi Festival, where it's spread across throughout the year. So it's spread across 12 islands. And so basically, it's very difficult to see everything. And then when you go to one of the pieces, like this big dome made of concrete, you have to remove your shoes, you have to queue, you have to get rid of your phone. And they tell you, watch out to where you're going to walk because there's going to be stuff on the floor. So you start walking in that space, and then you notice this little water, I don't know what, drops. And you see that they're moving. And then eventually everyone, adults, beings, are just staring at little drops of water on the floor. And people start laying on the floor, looking at these drops of water. And then you also notice that there is this little wire, white wire, at the dome, and it's moving with the wind. And basically, friction that we had to get there helps to create the condition for receiving the experience, more sensitivity, more availability, more emotion. What's an armchair? This is an armchair. This is also an armchair. And this armchair, you can use it for however you like. This is also an armchair, and this is also an armchair. And these are also armchairs with a critical design thinking. These are fixed armchair, nursed chair with crutch from 5 designers who are trying to reanimate objects, but not trying to restore them in their initial conditions, but to upcycle them with prosthesis. So there is this idea of the passivity in design, and then the emotionless design. And glitch could be there to stimulate the consciences and provoke emotion. So how do we glitch? Wiring this computer angel may help you to get online quickly and keep the bugs out. By refusing to conform to these rules, we are designing new spaces in which new narratives can emerge, which users must force themselves to take time to discover and understand. In doing so, we create a relationship with the visitors we welcome, rather than invisible interaction to guide emotionless users. And I just want to show you what's happening next. Yeah, it's a silent movie. That's what we need to do. Bye. And so I created Load More, which is a platform where I curate experimental mobile websites, initially to inspire my students, to show them that, no, digital is cool, because for them I was the most boring teacher ever. We create a mobile website like this one that I think you've seen just before. And this one is from Monica from the studio from Luna, who was there yesterday. Like any type of design, and I'm especially interested in mobile design to show that we can do things in a different way. This one, you have to go offline, you have to turn on airplane mode, and it activates the content. Do I need to stop talking? Almost. Okay. Where am I? I don't know. Okay. Quickly, this is from Marcoland. You flip your phone, so it's using the accelerometer, and when you flip your phone, you get this. And I think it's very important to gather inspiration elsewhere than online. So I wanted to show this also project from Monique, and someone here participated to this project. So it was a project for an exhibition about Calder and Fischli and Weiss. And they created this. You go online, you press this button, it blows a balloon, and we need enough puffs so that the balloon explodes. Let's see it exploding, even though we are missing time. Voila, so satisfying. And there was this machine, and someone here in this room, and I'm not going to say who, was the person in charge of changing the balloons, I just learned. Anyways, okay, I think I'm going to stop talking. What I just wanted to say is, like, basically, to finish, no. No, it's just to say, I keep writing. I went back writing, which was, like the stuff I was doing when I was 13. And now I write again, and it's really cool. I have a very poor language now. But basically, this was sent to publishers, and they said it should be a graphic novel. So now I'm working with this illustrator to turn the thesis into a graphic novel. So this is the first pages. It's just a test, but it's also talking about stuff that I've told you before. And yes, I know the computer is badly done because she doesn't know that the Macintosh cannot work with a tower. But so at age 13, I started playing Dark Age of Camelot, one of the first massive multiplayer online games we had access to in France. I was one of the rare IRL female player. My character was named Lise, a red-haired knight, fighting with a claymore, medieval two-handed sword. Liz was my one online self, a better version of me. White, French name, strong and powerful. I got married to another knight. His avatar name was John McGold. His real name, I don't remember. He lived in Troyes and decided to visit me in Paris because we somehow fell in love for real, maybe. My mom drove me to Paris. I met a man in his early 20s. I felt very embarrassed. My mom left us at a restaurant. I ate my first burrata, then went back home and got divorced. And I'm going to finish here because there are a few more slides, but I just want to finish with showing you this, which was shown in Amsterdam, not far from here, in 2019. It's called Online Together, and so people could scan a QR code and upload images, and basically like a decalcomania. And I took screenshots. There were automatic screenshots during the running of the exhibition. And there is a really funny narrative where people started putting nasty images, if you can imagine, when it was the opening party. And then someone else put only black images to censor all the dick pics. Yeah, because it was dick pics in case you didn't know. And I just wanted to let you play with it. So if you want to scan this QR code, oh, sorry for the mess behind. If you want to scan this QR code with your phone, you can try it. I can try it too. if it works. Is it working? I need to move. It tells me to move closer, so I'm going to move closer. So then you have to choose file, and what we can do, if you want, is to use pictures from iteration and just add them here, if it works. But the network is a bit... Yeah, it works? Okay. So there you go. Voila, I'm done.
Gimle! Applause, come on! Thank you. Oh, we still already stuff coming in.
Yeah.
Can I get some light in the room, please, so I can see all the lovely audience members? I like how both of the days we're ending with the word friction, because I think also what Luna Mauer yesterday proposed, and I think your manifest does the same, is that intentional friction can lead to richer, more meaningful digital interactions. So thank you for that. We're running a little bit late, and Kim has to catch a train, you heard it, but I do want to give you some, how do you say that? Opportunity to ask a question. So is there anyone with a question? Scanning the room. Nobody? Was that clear? Oh, one, yeah. You were like, oh, if nobody wants to. Okay, make it a good one. Hi,
Hi. I loved your presentation, thanks. I think it's more of a sort of a call to action, because when seeing the beautiful UI work and the playful video game-inspired interfaces, I was thinking that I have a daughter of 6, and she now has to study online for a lot of her homework in the worst interface ever. It's the Belgian government, so they don't have a lot of good UI or not a lot of money. And I was just thinking there is so much work to be done in playful interfaces, in, for example, educational settings, but anywhere. There's a lot of problems to be solved, so there's a lot of talent here in the room. So, we all use the talent for the best possible thing, I would say.
Yeah. I think that also matches with your vision of not gatekeeping, but gate crashing, bringing your communities, people.
Well, we don't have a government in France, you might know. We just copied your style. But I think it's... please don't put any dick pics. I think it's very important. I mean, this is not a topic that I talked about, but this is something that I really work around, how to protect children. And I think that the positive friction is one concept to produce creativity, but I think in terms of like protecting and health in general, because this, and this was really a big part of my thesis, the health issues. I'm really concerned. Maybe we, the health issues.
It was not about what you said.
No, the health issues are very important, and I think that the progress of the technology is at a speed that, like the government are not able to catch up with this, and now they are busy with other stuff as well. And it's not on top of the priority, and I understand that, but for me there is also, it's kind of like when it was the beginning, when we had cigarettes, right? I didn't do that. Someone decided it was too much. When we had cigarettes or we had junk food, like it took some time before the government started saying, hey, this is bad, and we're going to have issues with that, especially for the children. And I think it's just a matter of time, I hope, that we're going to, see solutions. But I think it has to come from us, because if we just wait for the governments to do something, I'm worried.
So this is actually one of the things that we need to rethink entirely. What are also things, because the web and technology has changed a lot since you started coding at 14, what excites you the most about the future?
Yes.
This part.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's good.
I think that for instance, Online Together, I created it, and I wanted to show that it's based on a book called Alone Together by an MIT researcher, Sherry Turkle, and she says that technology creates loneliness, and it's a book from 2011, and it's true. What she says is true. But I also wanted to highlight the, like the creative stuff that can happen. And as I said, like for me, the online spaces were a refuge for me as a teenager, and I was having a lot of fun there. And no, it's okay. I have friends and I have a healthy life and stuff like that. But it was okay for me to spend so much time online. It's just a matter of what do you do there. But like even in that illustration that I sent to the publisher, they were like, there is a big issue there. It's like it's pedophile, because I was a minor. And I meet someone who's a man, way older than me, and I'm like, yeah, what my mom was thinking. It's like, and all these issues, and the book is going to be about that too, to reflect on that with the knowledge I have now, but to, like I don't like the technophile, I don't like the technophobes either, and I think there is an in-between.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Yeah, and I think sharing and talking and like, being able to share visions is very, very important, and also to not agree and be able to keep the conversation open.
A friend of mine calls that middle part a joyful resistance.
That's a beautiful name.
Last questions from the audience before we wrap things up. No? Yeah, one? Hey, John. Well, actually, I'm going to invite you on stage in a second, so. But now as an audience member.
Yes, it's nice to see your work. I wish we met earlier. I know you were in New York, and I missed you. Do you play any video games still, or is it too much of a past thing?
A nostalgic question.
No, I try to not, because I'm really addicted. And also like I'm trying to make a book, I'm trying to teach, I'm trying to sort my life and things like that. So I don't, but I do love watching Twitch and look at people playing. But yeah, but it's something that I need to, like I need to be, I don't know, conscious about that, because then I can spend way too much time playing.
There's a place, there's a time. When might we expect the book to be released?
I hope next year, if I don't play video games.
Yeah, that's why she has to stay away from that device. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
One
you.
more applause for Kim.
Thank you.
And Kim, I would like to ask you to stay on stage and also invite John. John, can you join us again? Maybe we can grab these seats. And who is also with us is 100 Rabbits, if correct. Are you there?
Yes.
Yay, they're still here. So we thought it was nice to collectively like put a ribbon on this day, like wrap it up and yeah, almost end it. I wanted to ask you, because you both attended here the past few days, and probably you heard other people speak and felt inspired too, and maybe the same goes for Rek and Dymphie. What was something that really stuck with you from the past 2 days, or the talks that you hear today?
Okay, I start. That we have the same ideas, and this is great. That and we were discussing about that yesterday with Donatella and Quentin and John. That like I think most of the time I don't hang out with people who are interested in websites and this kind of stuff. But it's nice to gather and to see that at the end of the day, we are here and we kind of like share, we don't do the same things, but we share somehow same purposes or same attempts at making things in a different way. And it's so great to see this variety of possibilities and to see that that I'm not, like crazy with my ideas, that there are other people that are dealing with this.
Yeah, you have kind of a shared mission, and it's also nice to see that you need a multidisciplinary approach and see how you can collaborate on that. Yeah, John?
Yeah, same. Yeah, it seems like there's like a cultural moment, with a lot of things. Like people are kind of tired, and it's cool that all the talks had similar themes. Like, because I think a lot of coders get put into a very technology, conversation. You can get hired by tech companies and stuff like this, and then it's such a exhausting propaganda that you're put into of like, this is all great, everything new is great, so it's really inspiring that a lot of people are like trying to slow down in their own ways and think about the work they're doing. So
so take a moment to reflect as well.
Yeah, people are kind of tired, I think. So it's nice to see that reflected in practice.
100 rabbits, is that something that also resonates with you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see a lot of people who are pissed, but not only that, it's also people who are being proactive, and that's really nice. Like, I mean, it's easy to be feeling like overwhelmed and oppressed by all this, but I mean, there's a handful of people right now who are able to teach others how to fight back, and I think that's for me, like, that makes me very hopeful. At least that's the silver lining in all this.
Yeah. That's true. Rek?
Rek is like super microphone shy, so that's why I'm hugging the microphone. I'm just like, whenever there's a question, I sort of like look to my right. Rek's like, no.
You do it, it's okay. Well, we're happy we heard both of your voices in the presentation. Okay, how are you looking at the future? You already said something like you need to find the balance. How are you continuing to do that as a creative professional? Let's name it that way, and maybe also as a human.
I can go first this time. There's no like. Again, I'll talk about practice. It's like you got to set rules for your own practice and don't go at the speed anyone sets for you. Just try to be excited about your work, and I think a lot of creatives get stuck into, like I said, tech or some sort of coding job that they don't like, and you have like endless tools to make like a fascinating practice, and
yeah, but sometimes we don't need more technology, right?
It's not even that. It's more just the narrative is sort of around other people's rules. So if you can kind of just create a space for yourself in the world, that can be enough. So just keep doing that. I guess I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your own terms and conditions. I think in a way you also did that.
Yeah, I think, but in order to do that, for me, a big step, and I think it's important to be said, is to get rid of the fear. It's not easy, because like for me, leaving my position at Kenzo to open my studio first, I was really young then, but I was like, okay, let's go for it, and it was really scary. But and then closing the studio last year was even more scary.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's important to feel to be aware of what feels right.
Yeah, what feels good for you.
Yeah, because eventually that is what should make you, make choices. And I often think that making choices is very difficult for me because I want to do everything. That's why I started making websites, because you can put everything on the website. There is no limit. But you have to decide something, so you have to renounce to certain things to go somewhere. And in order to do that, you have to remove the fear, the FOMO.
Well, Davine, you certainly got rid of that FOMO. What is your advice to anyone who is at a point right now in also making that critical choice, as in how to continue with everything that you're doing, also related to all the teams that we discussed today?
Wait, you're asking me?
Yes. Because
Sorry,
you did make a really bold choice.
Well, the way we do it, I mean, okay, so don't go sailing. That's not the point. Like that's. I think some of the things we learned might be replicable, or at least can give some point or advice to people who are interested in building some resilience. But this is definitely not the way to do it at scale. I mean, like we put ourselves in a situation that was compatible with the things we were interested in. But yeah, I think like a multiplicity of exploration going on at the same time. That's the way to get there. Can I just want to say something, because we're like losing our minds right now with Kim's dress. Like Kim's dress is like making the video compression glitch, and I find it so on point with iteration.
Okay, I can do some advertising, product placements for my good friend, who's an amazing designer, and she made this dress, and I'm usually asking her if I can borrow stuff for going on stage because I want to look cool. And this was a prototype, and I was like, oh my god, can I have it? And she said, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm happy that it's
and it
glitching.
completely matches to all the graphic
Yeah.
work that
And
we
even
did.
with this, like
yeah,
this is...
even the key chord, it's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were supposed to bring friction to this stage.
Yeah.
It's seamlessly.
Yeah, seamlessly bringing the friction.
Yeah. Oh, that's okay. Nice save. Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap this day up. I'm gonna invite 2 more people to the stage, but before I do that, please put your hands together one more time for all the fantastic speakers that we had today. It was John, it was Kim, it was 100 Rabbits. Yeah, and also for the workshop facilitators of today, that was Flor de Fuego, Matania Aitensfu, and Roos Siegers. Also one more applause. And then I'm gonna bring one more chair in. So while I'm doing this, I would like to invite 2 more people. And that is, first of all, Vera van der Sijp. And the second one is, take a seat, Vera. The second one is Fabian van Sluis. Okay, because Vera and Fabian are the curators, please take a seat, Fabian, are the curators of today's and yesterday's program. And I just wanted to end the day with you and actually ask you for some final thoughts and reflections. Because can you tell me what was your highlight of, I know it's really hard to pick and maybe you don't even want to, but what was your highlight from these past 2 days? Who can I give the mic?
I'm not going to pick because I thought everything was great, but I think the greatest of all was to be here together. It was a really weird year, at least for me, maybe for some people as well. And I feel like this is always kind of in the end of the year, and it's just really nice to come together and like geek out on code. So I'm just really grateful for the speakers and the performers and the crew, Fabian, and yeah, and also the people in the room and the people watching online. And you, of course. So yeah, I'm just like, this was great. It was a great time to be together. I think that was my highlight. Very diplomatic answer.
It was, but that's okay, it's fine.
Yeah, I think to add, I have nothing to add, actually. But what is really nice to see is that we started this iterations during COVID, and it's really nice to see that now so many people showed up in real life, because this is also why CCU has been started. It was started to create this physical meeting space to get together and exchange inspiration. And yeah, so it's really nice that this iteration was the best iteration so far in terms of audience attendance.
Oh, that was really nice. Well, I want to ask you one thing, because can you check if we can still have a connection with the online audience to see if they have some final remarks? I have a next question, because how do you see the themes that were discussed in this edition? How are they shaping the creative coding landscape in the upcoming years, do you think? Also maybe for, you know, next editions. Any ideas?
We always just kind of pick things that we want to hear more about. So I'm just really excited to see, like in this edition, I saw a lot of people making tools, which was really interesting. There was a lot of talk about friction, world building as well, seeing these online worlds. But also there was an angle that we introduced last year, I think, for the first time. So kind of thinking about computing in a sustainable way. So I'm really excited to kind of see these things progress. And I think what was nice was to see that there was a lot of overlap. So it's not just sustainable computing or just tool building, but yeah, kind of combinations of that. So I hope that continues to grow together further.
Nice. So Fabian, what can we expect from future get-togethers? Are there anything?
Yeah, well,
are there any plans?
I think the other thing is indeed education, and hopefully the slide will come up.
This is the cue, people.
Yeah. So yes. Oh, well, anyway, we're organizing. This is like a preview, a teaser for our first winter school that we're organizing at the end of February. It's focused also on the young generation, or the younger generation, starting makers. So from 14 till 28. So still a bit broad. But basically, yeah, we invite everyone to take part in this winter school. Please apply, let me know if you're interested. And well, of course we have 5 days of making, and we end up with a small festival, which is art machines. So yeah, this is the little teaser for what's coming up.
Nice. Where can people maybe or apply, or if you need maybe a hand of help?
Follow us somewhere on our website.
Or just walk up to them, like not make it digital but physical. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Any final words towards the speakers? 100 Rabbits is also still listening, or maybe the audience.
I can go to my last slides. I have
you have
100
to catch a
more.
train. You have to catch a train. I don't want to be part of that. You have the mic, so you can have the last saying.
Okay, 2 words. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so for all of you, big thanks that you were here today. Thank you for your curiosity. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your questions. And we really, really hope to see you at future editions. Thanks.
See you next year.